6 o'clock, and I will now call to order the August 12th, 2013 meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission. For everyone's reference, this meeting is being recorded. Is everyone in the process of signing in to tonight's meeting? Great, I think the board's going around. So, first item on the agenda, or second item, public concerns, non-agenda items. Please come forward and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Dan Hagan. I live at 24 Highland Avenue.
Dan, can you spell your name?
Sure, H-A-G-A-N.
H-A-G-A.
A-N.
Yeah, thank you. And your address?
24 Highland Avenue.
Thank you.
Why I'm here tonight is a little bit brought on by the filling and grading operation that's been going on by between, I believe it's 121 and 135 Northampton Street. But it's really a matter for the entire city in that this operation has been going on now for a couple of months, and it started near Northampton Street and has progressed further and further back toward the canal. And now some of the residents have concerns because we're well over 1,000 feet back, and there's such things as what residents always refer to, and I'm sure you get it, is vernal pools and marshlands or wetlands, and I know all those definitions are, I read them, and I'm not sure, you guys deal with it all the time, I'm not sure, the exact definition of any of them, but what I'm a little concerned at, or what I'd like to see, and again, I won't take too much time tonight because I know you seem to have a pretty full agenda, is I don't think the average resident, including myself, knows exactly what a landowner can or can't do on their land, what type of water or wet spots can be filled or can't be filled. I know there's requirements by the conservation, I believe, of distance from certain other type of moving streams. And I was just wondering if for the good of everyone, and again, this is a citywide thing, this particular project, I know I read your agendas and I know there's been other projects in other parts of the city and of course also along Northampton Street, that if there would be a way to maybe make a document that for the public, and I know some of it's your enforcement, some of it's the building inspector enforcement, some is non-enforceable because the landowner is doing what they have a right to do. But sort of a common sense document or a layman's language document that at least would kind of give guidance to someone when it comes to even people next door neighbors, they'll say, geez, that my neighbors fill it in, and this isn't just for the developers, this is for residents. Neighbors will say, geez, my neighbors fill it in, land next to me and is pushing water onto mine. Is that a violation? Or, there's a little, what's an intermittent stream? I believe there's an intermittent stream. And again, it all came from this particular thing, and I don't know the exact extent of what, and I know you can't discuss what's not on the agenda, what, if anything, has been filed on this particular project, but that's kind of what brought me here, and maybe to simplify it for residents so that they have a little better idea of what can and can't be done, or what is enforceable by wetlands and what isn't.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Again?
Oh, I'm sorry.
What's the address? Must be somewhere between 125 to 150.
I believe it's I believe it's 121 to 135. Sorry. It's between the Papa George and McDonald's, and it goes all the way back to the river.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
So without specifics and without going too far off our agenda, because this is clearly a public concern non-agenda item, I will say two things. One, I think a general document is a good idea, and ask for patience because we're all volunteers. But we are trying to make more information available through the city's website to at least make the process more understandable. The other thing I will say is that the Commission has limited jurisdiction as established under the Wetlands Protection Act, and that's the state level. We do not have a local bylaw, we don't have a local ordinance. We might like one, which would be another topic for another night. But the Commission's jurisdiction is wetlands, vegetated wetlands that meet certain criteria for vegetation, soils, and hydrology. But those areas have to be bordering on a stream, a pond, a lake, a river, something else in order to give us that jurisdiction. So if it's an isolated wetland that, I'm going to go crazy with this, but doesn't meet the volumetric criteria for isolated land subject to flooding, then the commission doesn't have jurisdiction over it. That jurisdiction would come under state or federal level at this point in time. We also have jurisdiction over the land within 100 feet of jurisdictional wetlands and streams, ponds, things like that. We have jurisdiction over the 100-year floodplain. That doesn't get a buffer zone. And we have jurisdiction within 200 feet of perennial streams, which is defined in the regulations, and another tangent I could go off on. But if it's an area that is potentially a vernal pool, we don't have jurisdiction over that unless it's within an area that's already subject to our jurisdiction. Does that help?
Yes, I thank it. I'm not trying to take up time.
No,
I know it's
okay.
But and again, I know that map, say, behind you is not anything to do with wetlands. It's about transfer of key. But if you do look, see where the striped yellow and red stripes are, and then there's green right above it. You know, you do see a pond right at the top of that green. You know, like, I guess people see something like that and say, is that a pond on that? I think that's the area that some of these residents are concerned about. And again, I know this isn't the night to discuss it, but you know, that's what I guess, they show up, and I believe it shows up on some of the city maps. Again, but I do appreciate your time. Thank you.
And so we have an address, so we can look further into that, and Jessica can help us identify who to contact.
For a homeowner? You mean? For a property owner, I'm sorry? Okay.
And then, actually, if Dan doesn't mind taking a minute to mention the stormwater ordinance?
Yep. So the city also has a stormwater management ordinance, actually two of them. They were approved and signed in May of 2011. And they give a number of city commissions, including Planning Board, Conservation Commission, City Engineer, Building Inspector, jurisdiction over, or, well, not the Building Inspector, but the Building Inspector has a role over erosion sediment control and stormwater management. And these are requirements that are passed down from the U.S. EPA through the state to the local level. For projects where there's disturbance of land area of more than 1 acre, then there's pretty rigid criteria that somebody has to follow for both erosion sediment control during construction and what kind of things have to be done to the site when construction is completed. There's also simplified requirements for smaller projects that disturb greater than 10,000 square feet. And so, you know, that's also another way that, kind of on that, even though there's a bunch of commissions and boards involved, the Conservation Commission is kind of like where the buck stops. If it doesn't get involved in another process, it's supposed to come to us. So, you know, that's another way that we would get involved in that. And, you know, should certainly incorporate that in, or, you know, those requirements and kind of criteria into a plain language, generally available guidance document that would point people to more information.
Thank you. Is that available on our website?
The ordinance, there's...
Stormwater ordinance is under the general ordinance, which is right on the city homepage.
Yep.
It's incorporated in the general ordinance.
So that would be something you could look at, Mr. Hagan. So the action is, well, as a commission, we're going to look into that with Jessica and get back to Mr. Hagan directly, or is it?
Do you need permission from the property owner to get on their property, but did you want to look at the property from somebody else's property and get that permission?
That's an alternative. That's actually something I should mention. Under the Wetlands Protection Act, the Commission does not have authority to trespass on private property, even to evaluate or investigate a potential violation. It has to be viewed from a property we have permission to access or a public property or right-of-way sort of thing.
Or map,
or aerial photographs,
data.
Things of that nature. So if there's an adjacent property owner who would want to invite the commission onto their property from which the potential violation or the alleged violation could be viewed. That's an alternative. And we could coordinate that after tonight's meeting. Otherwise, we will continue this discussion on our August 26th meeting agenda.
Thank you.
And you're all invited to that. So, 6. Yep, and that will probably be under general business.
Okay.
Okay. So with that, are there any other public concerns, non-agenda items before we move on to our first public hearing? All right. I would now like to open the public hearing for the notice of intent filed by the Escomet Conservation Trust for the construction of a hiking trail from Ranch Avenue to the Manhan River.
Thank you.
Do we have an easel?
Ah! You've got one now.
We've got one now, and we're going to use it.
Put it up here.
We have an easel that's gonna come around.
Come
so
over here.
city is-
It's
Yeah.
very good.
Has everybody signed the sign-in sheet? If you haven't, raise
Do you
your
have
hand.
another one? Oh, do you have another one?
I don't. I got blank sheets of paper here.
Well, let's just...
Yeah,
Ah,
right.
here we go. We're going to sign, we're just going to flip it over.
Today's date.
It's good to know.
Nope.
Oh.
Jay made
Today's
this.
the 12th.
This is all one that we, out of this.
Rocking my world, Jay.
Let's say that.
It's a 12.
So, this map is a little hard to read. It is an enlarged black and white copy of this. I'll pass this around for anybody who wants to take a look at that little side here. If you're not interested, it's okay. So my name is Dick O'Brien. I'm with a group called Conservation Works, and we've been hired by Escomet to build the trail. And so I'm here to answer questions about that. There is a little stuff to, so copy of the ad
Thank
which
you.
you have.
Excellent.
Receipts for the submittal to
Thank you.
Natural
Excellent.
Heritage. This is the EP
Excellent.
record, and this is all certified mail receipts for all of you who were notified.
Thank you.
So the project is the proposed construction of a natural surface hiking trail from Ranch Ave here to the Manhan River. The route is along this white line here, here, and here. This area is a proposed kayak and canoe takeout area right on the river. This little spot here is a proposed viewing platform on the edge of the river at a point at this oxbow here, very scenic spot. There is a little bog bridge that crosses a drainage stream, intermittent stream here. There is another viewing platform along the edge of the river, set back and on the slope here. Another major bridge, when I say major bridge, 25-foot long bridge here with a set of stairs that come up the ravine at this point. There are some bench cuts down the ravine and back up the ravine to traverse from the entrance to this point of the bridge here. And then basically it is, as I say, a natural surface trail. The intent here is to create a hiking trail for pedestrian use only. The stairs going up the ravine are going to make it impossible for mountain bikers to use that safely or wisely. But it will be open for people to hike, to cross-country ski in the winter if you get enough snow here, or snowshoe. But that's basically the intent here. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions any of you might have.
What do you mean by bench cut?
Bench cut is a way when you have a slope, let me just, on a hill, so here's a slope, and if you want to hike across that, you know, if you're a hiker, you'd be hiking on an angle, 1 foot up and 1 foot down. So a bench cut is a cut that creates a surface that is much more level with only 3 to 5% cross slope. So now you're hiking sort of straight up. It doesn't put strain on your lower back, but it also controls erosion, makes the trail more sustainable. So that's what bench cutting is. It's a standard practice for installing trails on the slopes of a hill, on the contour of a hill.
I have a personal question. My condo unit is this one here,
Okay.
and I was just wondering, how far away is that from that area?
From here to here is a little over 250 feet, maybe about 300 feet, the length of a football field roughly.
Okay, my only thing is that there's a lot of deciduous trees there, and if all the leaves fall off, well then, you know,
Yeah.
I'll be seeing them, or they'll be seeing me, kind of.
There is a possibility. Garrett, if you want to address that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the winter you might be able to see across the field, but across those woods there, we did put the trail as far around that side to stay away from the condos.
It sounds like a great idea. I'm just worried about my privacy. My condo, the way it's located, I had to put in $2,000 worth of shrubs to, you know, give me a little bit of privacy on one side. I don't know if I want to do that again on the other
Yeah,
side.
I think, you know, if there are issues like that in the future, and I mean, I've been wandering around back there for, what, a year and a half now, and I don't think I've ever seen anyone on the condo side, and mostly that was when I was up against the boundary of the Hamptons, not over on the other extent. If there is an issue, you know, we can work with the Hamptons to maybe put some evergreens along the boundary, but I really don't foresee that.
Okay, that was, you know,
Now, there is a fair amount of fairly mature tree growth there, and so even if they lose the leaves, the stems themselves, I mean, the trunks of these trees provide a certain level of screening for the trail. And as you see, again, as Garrett said, if this is the lot line, they're pretty close to their lot line. There's not much further they can go over without getting onto the abutter's property and asking permission to put half of the trail on his property.
Which we've actually already done in order to get...
Yeah, you've got a little bit on his property.
And I'll put in a little pitch to say that there wouldn't have been any trees there at all if we hadn't stepped in and with the city's help, so it was all going to be cut.
And for the record, what's your name, I'm sorry?
Garrett Stover,
Garrett
who's a
Stover.
volunteer with the trust.
I have some questions about getting the materials into the site and the equipment to do the work itself.
It's all going to be hand done.
The bench cutting will be by hand,
Yep.
and then the soil will be,
The soil will be moved by hand by bucket.
and then,
The slopes on those ravines are just too steep to
very
use
steep.
equipment. This is all of this work, I mean, there'll be small power tools, and I'll hand carry a compressor or a generator in there, but this is all handwork. There's unfortunately no access for power equipment in there.
Including the bridge construction? The 25-foot long span bridge?
Yep, that's all constructed by hand.
Take them in on,
I'm just
like,
concerned that the people,
thing for when you're taking a canoe or
So they go
something,
to
the
the
wheels.
No,
Do something not even like
well,
that?
out of the gravel.
we're gonna, I mean, these are gonna be log stringers that are cut from the area. We'll drop it and we'll winch it into place
See what
right there, so it's all hand winch work.
Sorry, well, we're gonna do the commission's
Okay,
questions,
sure.
and then we'll
That's
open
fine.
it up for more public comment. So does anyone have anything before I ask my next
I'm
question?
just approaching concerns about digging out those areas. You know, if there's something you have to do to prevent that from eroding from a heavy rain while you're in the process of...
Well, you should have received an alternate packet of information, the pictures.
They received it by email,
Okay.
and I believe there's one hard copy there.
So, if you look at these photos, the flagging in here actually shows the actual slope of the trail. And I've tried to put that out so that the slope is under 10%. And if the bench cut is done properly at that 10% or less, you get sheet flow over that as opposed to erosion on it. So again, as a standard sustainable trail practice,
Right, after it's done, but I think Jay's question really was more about during
during construction.
Yeah, I mean, just when it's been opened up and, you know, we get downpours like that, it's, you know...
Yeah. Again, the idea here is as we move along, that surface and those soils are brought up to the top of the hill and scattered on the ground, so there really shouldn't be much erosion.
And you are concerned about the trail washing out?
I'll tell you seriously, that first ravine, as we go down it and up it, that's the only area that potentially, because of the soils, the nature of the soils, it could. And in that case, if you read that, the alternate is to build wooden staircases down it. That's considerably more expensive for the applicant, the owners. But I think, given that we've laid it out so the slope, the grade of that trail is under 10%.
Okay.
And if we do the bench cut correctly, we shouldn't have that erosion problem there. Right? That's my opinion. We've done enough of this kind of bench cutting in a lot of different soil types to have a fairly good level of confidence in proposing it here. If we didn't, we'd have suggested we just could go straight to the wood stairs here.
All right.
After the 25-foot bridge coming out of the ravine there, because of the steepness there and the configuration, we couldn't get the length to keep the grade down.
Okay.
So we have proposed wood stairs, 3 sets of wood stairs there to get us out of the ravine.
Okay, great.
Okay, I will note that DEP did assign a file number and it does not have any comments, but the portions of this are within mapped rare species habitat, and that Natural Heritage has not, we don't have any correspondence from them.
No,
You don't either.
I don't at this point, but we did file with them, I did talk with them, and
See that? Do you know what type of species? Is it plants or insects or animals or birds or
it's both
multiple reptiles?
Yeah, reptile habitat and plant species
Okay.
that they're concerned with. And again, as we move forward with this, one of the first activities would be for my partner, Pete Westover, who's a much better wildlife identifier than I, would walk through and flag any plant communities that are of concern or any areas that are of concern. And we would then talk with Garrett and the trust and say, well, we've got to alter the trail a bit here.
Did you file an information request with Natural Heritage before filing under NISA, or how did you come upon this information about what's present within that mapped area?
I went down and talked with them in person. They're building a new headquarters. They moved their temporary office to West Boylston, which is a 10-minute drive from me. So I went down and hand filed this and talked with Laura and Gloria, so and got that information firsthand.
So with that said, so Natural Heritage looks like you hand delivered on August 6th and they have 30 days. So before opening up to more questions, I would definitely like to do a site visit and walk the proposed trail route and see the bridge locations and the beacon platform locations. So what works? Well, I mean, weekend or another Monday evening. I think given the scale of the property, what period of time would be reasonable to walk, look, and discuss?
Yeah,
Hour and a half.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking in detail, probably an hour and a half.
Okay. So could we do a weeknight?
It'd be better for me.
That would be better for me too.
Yeah, Monday is good, Monday
So
night.
if we want to do, all right, Jessica, are you interested in accompanying? Okay, so we're looking at calendar, Monday the 19th. And can folks meet at 5:15?
Yeah,
Can we do 5:15?
I can race to be there by 5:15.
Okay, so does that work for
Yep, works for
PCT and
me.
you? Okay. So we're gonna say 5:15, Monday, August 19th.
And where are we meeting, what location? are we meeting?
What is the best point to park multiple vehicles and exit under your vehicle?
Ranch Ave really is the,
Ranch Ave? Okay.
since there isn't a road at Jillian Estates.
Ranch Ave
In a few weeks there will be.
near the Jillian Estates entrance, start of that project though, or?
No, it's,
It's kind of on the other side. There's a,
I just drive around screaming on Ranch Ave. Sorry.
yeah.
I'll be parked at the entrance with a green Toyota Tacoma, so.
That works. Okay, so. Just make sure I guess I'm here for myself, even though Chris is here. Okay, so are there any other questions from the commission?
just one question. Will there be signage posting the allowable use of the trails, whether it be, no ATVs or whatever that
Yeah, it
is?
says foot trail only.
Okay.
Foot trail only, it will say?
Yeah, and just so you know, we negotiated, because of the topography, basically the trust property is like this, and with the fence running like halfway up the slope. So on the eastern side of that, we had to negotiate 2 trail easements that cross into Butter's property. And because he's particularly sensitive about wildlife disturbance, we have more formal signs than we usually do about you're entering a sensitive natural area, don't disturb wildlife, don't do all this unpleasant things.
You mentioned you mentioned a fence. Is that existing or proposed or?
No, I just marking the little pasture boundaries or whatever, if there's barbed wire fences.
Okay, so it's old. It's been there. Okay.
Yep.
And to your question about ATVs, the bog bridges and the main bridge will not be wide enough for a machine to get over. So,
Yep. Okay.
Just okay, I would now like to open it to the public, but I will, you were all here for the beginning of this meeting, so you heard what the commission's jurisdiction is. Wetlands and the 100-foot buffer zone and riverfront area and the floodplain. Concerns about specific uses are not our jurisdiction under the Wetlands Protection Act, so we can't really speak to that, so this isn't really the best forum, though you do have 2 people here you can talk to afterward. And I do ask that you identify yourself by name and address and then ask your question. Start in front.
Gil Billings, I live in Hampton East, 359 Main, 14A. The access, we are going to provide an access from the condo area, yes. But we will be also having signs indicating that the public is not welcome to park there. So it's access basically for people who live in a condo.
Ma'am?
I'm Kelly Holbert. I live at 12 Ranch Avenue. I'm the last house before the woods, and my neighbor next to me is across the street. And our question is about parking. Are there going to be parking spots created, or are people just going to park at that end of the street?
At this point, I think it's just parking at the end of the street.
Yeah, it's a very odd configuration in that Ranch Ave runs, basically dead ends at the property line, and our property is half of that dead end. So there's really no way we can build a parking area in there. If the configuration was different, we definitely would have tried to do that. Just to give you a sense, Brickyard Brook over on between East Street and Mount Tom Ave, it's our most traveled conservation area at present, most developed trails, and one of our board members has an access at her, basically next to her garage. And we've been doing trail work there for years, and I've never seen more than one car parked there. Our expectation is that it's going to be mostly people from the neighborhood that walk in, and that's one of the reasons we have two entrances, so that it's easier to get to. If there are issues, we'll be happy to put signage up that being considerate of neighbors, and it's unfortunately situation can't address.
I understand. Thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
Shauna Viscone, 13 Ranch Ave. How close is the trailhead to the property line? It's hard to see on there.
If you're looking down Ranch Ave towards the property, again, there's maybe 15 feet before Ranch Terrace begins. So we have a fairly narrow area to start the trail in. And at that point, again, we're trying to stay as far away from the neighbors as we can. It goes kind of back towards the ravine, and then along the edge of the ravine, and then goes down as bench cuts. And it tries to stay as far away from the Ranch Terrace people as possible.
Ranch Lane.
Ranch Lane, sorry.
So where the ravine is through there also, is that still 15 feet from the property line as far as where the trail goes through the woods there?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
So right here is the end of Ranch Ave, and here's the property line here. So we really only have that to access to the property.
Thank you.
You can keep that. Yeah, we kind of tried to tuck it a little bit downhill, so.
Yep. Thank you.
Are there any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay. With that, we will continue this to our August 26th meeting. Meeting will start at 6 o'clock. The agenda will be posted at least 48 hours in advance of the meeting. And we will have our site visit on the 19th at 5:15.
And anyone is welcome to join us. Yes. The public is welcome.
Long
There are
pants.
no trails.
Yeah, long pants.
That's right. Like good appropriate footwear. All right.
And I'll bring plenty of tools, so when you all come out, you get a jump start.
Just stay out of the buffer. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you on the 19th.
The people using that trail will exit from behind them. how people come up back there now.
Is that sign-in sheet still going around? Can I grab this from
You don't think so? No, it doesn't go behind. What I'm saying is that...
Can I make just a quick comment while we're in between sessions here? I just want to comment on your statement about your jurisdiction on this property. I just want to remind you that we are the owners of the CR of this property, and so we do have some level of interest in terms of more above and beyond just the wetlands issue here. I just want to kindly remind you.
With that, we will move on to the request for determination of applicability filed by William Gruber for 88 Torrey Street.
I'm William Gruber. Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I'm just here to determine the status of a brook at the rear of this property that I would like to buy and build a single-family house on, located at 88 Torrey Street.
And the brook is at the back of the property?
Yes.
Is this actually Hannah Brook? Or is it a tributary to Hannah Brook?
It is on this map, it's called Hannon.
That's what I thought I saw that somewhere.
I think it is.
I think it is.
Yeah, I think it is.
You have it on this map. It's
Oh, it has. Okay. Yeah.
So,
Spell Hannah.
H-A-N-N-U-M. So I'm a little, so you would like us to,
Was an RDA submitted?
yes.
Yes.
That's right, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine. Okay, so you're asking us if, I'm a little confused because I know we had some conversations.
Right.
You phoned and asked some questions about how to file with the commission and the property in general. And I'm just a little confused about the information provided. So you're not currently proposing anything, any work? Is that correct? You just want to know if the stream is perennial or intermittent?
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's a perennial.
Okay.
I mean, it was flowing during the heat wave, and it does supply Ricky's Pond.
Well, I looked it up as well, and it's mapped as perennial, which means it's perennial unless, as we discussed, you document before. No, not going to happen.
Not gonna happen.
Okay, so the stream is perennial, as it's shown on the map, and that means that okay, so on the figure you provided, do you mind?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sit right up here if you want. Here or
We don't want
get comfortable.
Okay, so this is approximately 100 feet, thank you. That's
My
100.
son Jamie Gruber, and he's the one that
That's great. And so this is the 200?
That's the 200, right?
Okay, so you are,
This is the proposed house, which is probably, this corner of the house is 150 feet. And then the 100-foot line goes off at an angle right here to the other lot.
so, and then there'll be a driveway.
The driveway is right here on
Oh,
this.
there's an existing.
Yeah, right there where that little white is showing. It's already in there.
And the lot's pretty much clear.
Pretty much, yes. There's some vegetation, there's a slope on this area here that goes down to the brook, way to that. And then there's some trees on that would be the north side of the lot. This is all open, and there's trees along the road.
So really, it's not an RDA to determine if the stream is intermittent, because we know we've determined it's not.
Correct. It's for the construction of a single-family home in the riverfront area, between 100 and 200 feet.
So that's really the DRDA, it's the approval of resource area boundaries and conditions.
So what, when was the lot created?
Do you know?
Was it 2008 it was recorded? Or 07?
Here it is, right
It was signed by the planning board in 07.
Okay. Christine, you can note that in the minutes.
Sorry.
Lot was created in, what was the date you said? Sorry.
This says
That's a seven. And this was the date on the, that I'm looking at, the answer is 06, so 07.
So just wanted to stick with 07 and
There's a date.
June
I'm just
26th.
looking for a set of the regulations.
Okay, June 26th or 7.
Do you happen to have a their box right here? Wonderful. I promise not to write on anything.
yeah, well, not we get one of them from it was recorded here.
Okay.
So if it was an existing lawn and it was created by two, like the house with the two adjacent houses from a little portion of this property and a portion of that property, is that still considered undeveloped parcel, or is that for as far as?
It's, you said it's vegetated, it's grassy, herbaceous stuff, so it's not previously developed integrated riverfront area, so we're at 1058 too. But really, what the commission needs to decide is, does the construction of a single-family home, and presumably a maintained yard around it, in the riverfront area, require the filing of notice of intent, or is an RDA acceptable?
Yeah, so I guess the question is what the performance standards would be.
The proposed garage, is there a structure there already?
No.
Does the present owner own any adjacent undeveloped parcels?
Fran, do you own any other property? No.
No.
One single family, this is not a subdivision. Correct?
That's correct.
I'm reading through. Do you know the total area of, total square footage of riverfront area on the parcel? If you had to ballpark it.
Ballpark it, I would say, looks like about maybe, and that's the 200-foot line, right?
Yep. On the
Is
whole
there a
parcel.
binder of minutes up there?
Is what?
I wonder why your minutes.
It's like 6,000. 28,000.
Maybe? That's the new one. The old one is white. Here.
No, this is
2000.
You're looking for meeting minutes from 2078?
Yeah, I'm guessing 28,000.
Okay, so 10% is 2,800, so 5,000 square feet. What's your, and so if you were to construct the house and, I'm assuming there would be improvements to, and the garage, and improvements to the driveway, and the yard itself,
Right.
what would your footprint of work be? Because in riverfront area, two things. One, you have to maintain 100 feet of undisturbed vegetation.
Okay, that's no problem. I won't be back there.
And their yard would be restricted to that.
Right.
So like that 100-foot setback, they couldn't do anything to that.
Right.
And then you're limited to 5,000 square feet on the parcel.
Okay, and including the house?
Mm-hmm.
Including the house and the garage?
So,
44.
So, like 16.
It's like 1232.
Plus the driveway.
I'm assuming they'd want to, I mean, it would include the driveway regardless of the
The house is
driveway.
going to be for me. So, yeah, I think that 5,000 square feet?
5,000 square
Yeah,
feet
I think that's doable.
with yard and
Yeah.
accessory structures.
Now, when you say yard,
Mowed lawn.
mowed lawn, okay.
It already looks like it's mowed.
Yeah, that's what I was.
From
It is mowed.
the satellite photos, it looks pretty mowed. So
It's mowed. So, if I don't touch that and leave it alone, it'll still be mowed from the 100-foot line toward the
That's its
street?
present
Okay,
condition.
yeah. That's-
Now what about shrubs and plantings and stuff around the house? Is that would be...
You're really looking at the envelope of
Yeah.
development,
Okay.
so. So again, this comes back to the question for the commission. Is the commission comfortable doing this as a determination with conditions, or is an order of conditions more appropriate?
Well, let me ask a question about existing degraded riverfront area. What counts as degraded?
Degraded, areas degraded prior to August 7th, 1996 by impervious surfaces from existing structures or pavement, absence of topsoil, junkyards, or abandoned dumping grounds.
So we don't really have any of those conditions in the existing situation.
It's not a previously abused parcel of land.
Yeah. All right.
The only area that might qualify as degraded is outside the riverfront area, basically.
Yeah.
5,000 is doable if you're not going to go crazy with, plantings.
Yeah, no. When you say plantings, if you plant a tree, what is that? It's what you disturb when you plant a tree? Like maybe a circle around the tree, is that what that means? Or a shrub?
You're really looking at the rough area of, if you look at the functions and values of riverfront area, that's what the regulations try to preserve. Significant to the protection of private public water supply, bless you, protect groundwater, provide flood control, obviously scale of river is a consideration. Prevent storm damage, prevent pollution, protect land-containing shellfish, protect wildlife habitat and fisheries. Which is, again, why it deals with perennial and not intermittent streams. So, we can do a couple things. We can make a decision right now. We could request a site visit and go look for ourselves. I guess I see those as our two options. I'm open to more suggestions. Anyone would like to?
I mean, the site looks pretty mowed and pretty clean, so it looks like you're only going to develop where you're going to put the buildings in the driveway.
Right, yeah, that's it.
You may have to remove some shrubs where the garage is going to be, is that? Kind of looks
It's
like
right on the edge,
Okay,
it's
all right.
right on the edge there, so there won't be much removed. Because there's setback lines here, that's the dotted line.
Is this a pretty flat parcel?
What it is
Or the
from
lawn
Torrey
part
Street,
is flat?
it slopes up gently to about where the 100-foot line is, then it's level, then maybe about 50 feet from the brook, it goes down to the brook, but it's all level up there.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty level and open.
What kind of trees and shrubs are existing where the garage workshop is proposed?
They're natural trees like maples, black birch, I think, little ones, little trees, conifers, evergreens, like balsams.
These were like
Yeah, I think they're like balsams, a lot of balsams were planted there.
I guess I would be more comfortable doing this under an RDA if it was just areas that are currently grassed that are going to be, converted to residential use and not, without cutting of trees, shrubs, and that kind of vegetation within the riverfront area. That's kind of my gut reaction to it, without looking at the regulations in much detail.
So,
Go ahead.
just for discussion's sake, the more conditions that pop into my mind, the more it seems like the activity should have an order of conditions as opposed to a negative determination. This is new development. It is within the riverfront area. You already moved it. You're already showing it that it can be presumably permitted through other boards if necessary in its current orientation. But I'm thinking of things like, well, if you're going to cut down, if you have to remove woody vegetation within the, granted it's the last X number of feet, but within that area to construct the garage, then can the garage either be moved or would we be asking for a minimum 1-to-1 replacement ratio for those trees to enhance the first 100 feet of riparian?
I think the garage could be moved. It also could change in size.
Bigger or smaller?
Okay, so with an order of conditions, that would be actually recorded as part of the deed. With an RDA, it
Nothing
would
is
not.
recorded, but it's valid for 3 years.
I guess my concern is the long-term memory of this site and people in the future not knowing, like when you sell it, not knowing their restrictions in the back of the site. That's my biggest concern about this.
How about like maybe a fence along that 100-foot line?
And that's actually something that popped into my mind, but again, that's one of those conditions.
It's a condition, and the order conditions. And we do that with other properties. We ask them to do some sort of delineation as a condition.
Visual barrier, visual reference mark.
So this mid-2007 predates, I think, all of our presence in this commission. Maybe
that's correct.
You may have been under.
I may have been on for a few months.
Yeah. So I guess I was wondering if there was an existing.
I don't think we have an existing file. I think when the calls first came through, Jessica looked in the files.
Oh, okay. So there's probably not any, any order of conditions or any conditions in the deed or anything like that with the parcel.
I don't think so.
Okay.
It starts in 08, so.
That's when I started taking minutes.
And so just to make sure I'm on the same page, a few weeks ago, we issued a negative determination of applicability for 296 Livedale Road, which was another single-family residential structure proposed, I think, outside the riverfront area, where there was also an existing structure.
Correct.
Also, right? So it's, I'm just checking our precedent, apples and oranges. Okay.
I mean, if you want, we can do a site visit. I don't know if it would change, thank you, my mind.
Too nervous.
But I would be more inclined to an NOI for this.
Is there any further discussion? Someone like to make a motion?
Well, is there agreement or?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, I would make a motion to request that the applicants, is it actually a category, or is it just they have to do an NOI? No, it's number one, so it's a positive determination, negative.
Hold on a second.
Right.
Do we want to make a motion or
Or we do a site visit and think we'll talk about it more, I don't know.
Yeah.
That was my question.
I mean, I guess, go ahead.
No, you finish.
I guess my question is, is this how you want us to look at this project with the residents here and
Yes.
the garage there and make this motion based on that? Okay.
Unless the garage is a problem.
To me, it's not the garage.
It's not the garage. It's the overall concept of construction, new development within riverfront area.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
So I would like to make a motion to issue a positive determination. I think it's category 1 from what I'm reading, but I want to... Which is that the area described on the plan is an area subject to protection under the Acts, and removing, filling, dredging, or altering the area require the filing of notice of intent.
There's a
I'll
second?
second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And if you are willing to wait a few minutes, we can make our copies and give you this, and the owners here as well?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll give you your copy tonight by hand delivery as well.
Is the notice of intent, do I have to hire a professional? No?
I'll get the form for you right now, because we actually have it. Give me the light of it.
Thanks. I'll walk away with that, thank you.
Trying to make my signature sloppier so I match everybody else's. A long way to go.
Jay's gonna put you to shame.
Yeah.
I'll be back momentarily.
This one, or is it? That's her side. Get this one back to you? Yep. That stays in the file for the very elected. Where are the...
I thought we had hard copies, but I guess we don't, I'll make some. But there's also a link on the website.
Okay.
If you go into forms and documents on the city's website, if you go to Conservation Commission, you should find a link to the Form 3.
Okay.
Form 3, right? Right.
I think so.
And then here's a filing checklist for the notice of intent, and then here's some additional information regarding just the legal notification. I'll get you a schedule as well. Grab that as well.
Sure.
There was still copies here.
You can also come down to the office tomorrow, and we can just print out the form for you.
Okay.
There's that also. And all that stuff's on our website as well, if you use the hard copy.
Are you going to do a site visit?
No, not at this point. We wouldn't do a site visit. We would do, when you submit the notice of intent and we have our next meeting to discuss it, then we would schedule a site visit at that point.
Because you're the property owner.
And then you issue order of conditions?
Right, yep. And it would, yep, we would issue the order conditions and, we would actually itemize all the conditions.
And the filing fee, does that go, how much is the filing fee?
I don't know, what is it?
I would
Depends on
have to
square
look at
footage, isn't it?
No, no, it's activity. I don't know that one off the top of my head, but I can, if you email the commission asking, the Conservation Commission's address, I can reply to
You
that.
got the conservation,
I think you do.
at Easthampton, I think you do.
Yes.
Yeah, you can ask us questions and you can answer and help you out with it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I need to.
You do this stuff? Or you can keep that. I'll keep you posted, Eugene, okay?
So,
Just ask for a couple of minutes to get our paperwork caught up.
I'll just give it time, so hopefully we can have a meeting.
He's hoping we'll do the order of conditions.
Can I check, it's yours for in the box. It's just the copy to go to DEP. Thank you.
We're at this meeting ready.
You mailing labels?
No.
I want to get into
I'm not judging.
You don't make mailing labels in your spare time for,
I do not, no, I don't.
you know, file labels?
Even worse.
Even worse.
Put them on one, I know what else I can throw away. All right, so, no request for certificates of compliance. Moving on to the 37 South Street property. Please come forward. Have a seat. Sign in if you haven't signed
They still make that stuff? They do, but they want the squirt. It's like concentrated liquid. You're ready.
Hi, I'm Mark Connell from Book Design, just presenting regarding the Mr. Golf 37 South Street. A real quick synopsis of the history. The commission noticed that some work was being done within what was apparently a resource or area. The commission issued an enforcement order, and the enforcement order essentially had 3 phases. First phase was stop what you're doing, get all your equipment out of there, stabilize the site, control barriers. The second portion was hire somebody to do environmental assessment, to delineate the resource areas, come up with a plan, and present that plan, a draft, issue that plan to the commission for you to review, comment on. And then once that plan was agreed upon, then it would have to be implemented. Very quick synopsis. Basically, the areas that we were talking about were, well, I'll go back to the original scenario. He did stop what he was doing, he got the equipment out of there. The site has been totally stabilized, it's all growing, there's no erosion that I've noticed there. The thing that did not happen was we did not install erosion control fences or barriers. We felt the site was stabilized. We had a site visit, we discussed that and agreed upon that, so that was not done. We did hire someone to go out and flag the resource area. Ward Smith flagged it. Emily Holmberg Associates did the survey. Just a real quick side note, this is the actual survey, which we felt it was a little bit difficult for
The aerial background is
so we put the aerial
much
background
more
and added some
helpful.
notes to make it a little clearer for us to discuss. What I've done, basically, I divided the project up into 3 scenarios. I believe the commission, based upon our sidewalk, had observed a single area of disturbance. This is the bike trail. You had noticed work in this area, and so that was the issue for the issuance of the first one order, I believe. So we had a site visit, and while we were there, we discussed the fact that he had cleared this area and also had cleared this area north of the pond. And then at the hearing, the commissions noticed and brought up the fact that there had been some activity up here in this area of the riverfront area as well. It had taken place farther back in time. Mr. Galba's property back in 1972, I believe it was. That was before the Wetland Protection Act and obviously before the River Protection Act as well. What I've done is sort of broken the project up into 3 different areas. Area 1 was the area that was first observed by the commission, and basically it consists of this area here. This, again, the mean annual high water is the area in the internal portion of it. The area here is the bordering vegetative wetland. We have taken that information and having shown a 100-foot buffer zone from the wetlands, and we've also shown a 100-foot delineation from the mean annual high water. Based upon my interpretation of the River Protection Act, the riverfront area extends in a semicircle from the beginning of the designation of a perennial stream Based upon the current definition, it begins after it leaves the pond, and so therefore it begins as it leaves the culvert. So from that point, we drew the 100 and 200 foot semicircle. Just to solve the issues. Going back to area 1, there is an area inside here, which is inside the buffer zone, had previously been cleared. These tree lines were picked up by the surveyor, and if you look at the aerial, it's not exactly matched, but they seem to match the same as what was on the aerial. And we go back, in some previous years, there's a good aerial, 2001, that was for 1995, black and white, not very great, but it still shows the same tree lines seems to have been there at the same time. In this area here, it's not in this woods, it's hard to tell exactly what it was, but it does seem to be gravel, stockyards, low scrub area, and it seemed to be that way in 1995. Our original contention was this area was an open field, it was maintained, and it wasn't well maintained, but it was an open field, and based upon the grandfather clause, if it was a landscape area or an area that was used, we could continue doing it. Obviously, Mr. Gall didn't mow it once a week or once a year or once every 2 months or 2 years, but I think based upon interpretation of regulations, he has the right to maintain and continue using it. It was in existence in 1995, so that was his contention that this area is grandfathered in that perspective. Go to area 2, we had discussed this area. This area had been cleared. We requested that a transect be conducted in the undisturbed area, which Wordsmith did. It showed an area about 10 feet wide. I did not provide the commission the actual transect information at that point at the time of submission, but I do have that transect from Wordsmith, which describes how he delineated the Union High Water as well as the BBW and the transect as well. He did provide a transect information for here. My request from me to you, full board, is he did not provide transects for all the BBWs through here. It's a lot of additional work. I don't know if it's important to the commission to do it. If we need to, we can do it, but I don't think the delineation of the wetlands is a critical part of this project.
In that area, no, I would agree, and I would say that they're largely defined by topography.
Okay.
So.
Thank you, on board, thank you. So that was the one, going back here, so we do have that transect, now just sort of a side note there. This area here, if you look at the old photos and standing in the field, it's obvious that the brook came through here. This is essentially a constructed dam. It's not designed by the Corps of Engineers, but it is a dam. It's got all the trappings of every engineering dam I've ever designed or have seen. There's a controlled outlet here at this location which lets the water pass, controls the elevation of the dam. It has a spillway which is constructed this way in case this exceeds capacity or fails, has a provision to allow the water to go around through a controlled location through a dry culvert to prevent the water from overtopping the dam and causing failure. So it's a dam structure, not in a foul word scenario, but a engineering perspective. It is a dam structure and it should be maintained, it needs to be maintained. And so the spillway area needs to be maintained. The access to the outlet control structure needs to be maintained. And Mr. Gall did maintain it. He didn't come to you first, but he did maintain it. And that's an ability under it's actually on a limited project status that you're allowed to maintain a structure. In theory, not in theory, but in general practice, you shouldn't allow woody growth on a dam structure. It causes potential for failure. So that area was cleared up. And if he applied for a limited project status and was granted by the commission, he would have been allowed to do all this work here. But condition, maybe, well, could have been allowed as a limited project with conditions. Area 3 was the construction of the portion of this garage and the driveway, a little clearing here, and the driveway access up to it. A notice of intent should have been filed for this. If the notice of intent had been filed, it could have met all the performance standards for work within a riparian zone on a site. The regulations allow, under new development, this would not be considered redevelopment, this area was not degraded. It allows up to 5,000 square feet or 10% of the area on a site to be disturbed. There's 187,000 square feet of riparian zone on the site. 10% of that would be 18,000. This hashed area that you see here, which would be the area of disturbance, is around 8,000 square feet, 7,400 if you add some slope work in here, but if you wanted to round it up to 8,000 square feet, it could very well. It's a lot less than 18,000 square feet, so it could have been done. The only thing that was not done on this project that had come to you as original NOI was an alternative analysis would have been required. And it would have been asked, is there a way to construct this without impacting? And that is not in conformance with the regulations, but at this point in time, is there, and I take Mr. Goff for his word, and totally agree, that he respected the fact that you were trying to stay away from the wetlands. He was not aware of the riparian zone scenario, so there was no malintent about avoiding the regulations or requirements, but he did construct this area without. So as far as the mitigation process, we felt that, the only code violation for this area is the fact that you have an alternative analysis. And therefore, we could have had a project done and approved by the commission with no mitigation for that. So at this point in time, we're requesting that no mitigation is required as part of this. We've stabilized the site, we've pulled back. He understands now that he cannot do any work in these resource areas or buffer zones. And that's a real quick summary of where we are. Draft plan, and I think we're trying to submit it to the commission for input and comment.
Does anyone
stop there and ask for questions and clarification?
So when you say a transect of 10 feet at the pond in Area 2, that's the distance from the edge of the water to the bordering vegetated wetland?
At this location, at that site visit, let's go into the little path to clearing. So he took this one location and did a transect. And if you measured those 2 points, they were surveyed, this were flagged and surveyed. That distance was 10 feet.
So my concern there is, I agree that it has to be maintained, and I agree that there has to be access to the overflow and to the dam, but that was an extensive amount of clearing that went on there. And it was, there was fertilizer put down to make the grass grow, which when we had the site visit, was leaching into the pond, and that was a concern for me. I don't know if it's a concern for anyone else in the commission, but I was concerned by it. So one thing I would note is, from my point of view, there shouldn't be any more fertilizing on that site. Secondly, I would want to see some sort of repair or something to that first 10 feet around the pond for basically of no mowing, no, it doesn't have to be, I don't really care if it's planting or not, the grass that's there can grow, but no mowing in that 10-foot strip. No, not any sort of activity happening there so that area can grow back to protect the water. That's really the only concern I have. I don't really know about an Area 1. I don't necessarily mind that's been mowed. I did see previous maps, and if it's been mowed in the past, I don't know. I think it's every 3. You have to do it every couple of years, every 3 years to maintain those things, or no?
There's no criteria.
There is not
for that. Go ahead.
So I don't mind about Area 1 and Area 3. It's what's done is done. Okay. So then, but that's my point of view on that. Others might have different opinions. So my concern is really Area 2.
Was there fill being brought into the site? Where they may have been within the jurisdictional resource areas? I'm just trying to understand the extended impacts a little bit better.
Any fill brought into the site? I guess Mr. Goff would have to answer that. Was any fill brought into the site? No. Trucked in material?
I guess my concern, if I could interject, focusing on Area 1 specifically, is that I agree absolutely that if a condition existed prior to the promulgation of regulations, then that condition is grandfathered. My hesitation, and I'm kind of searching for some more diplomatic words here, there was disturbance of the ground surface, it appeared, in that area, and that's not grandfathered. Mowing doesn't disturb the ground surface. Mowing just keeps the vegetation down, keeps the woody stuff down, keeps the herbaceous stuff out. And I'm fine with that in this location. What I'm not fine with is bulldozers and dump trucks and ripping, vegetation getting pulled out by the roots, if that's in fact what was happening. That level of disturbance in the riverfront area is not grandfathered. So I would say that at a minimum, that should not be happening. And now it's, clearly Mr. Ball now understands that there's a different set of wetland resource area requirements on this parcel that he was not aware of before. And that, as far as I'm concerned, is that's my concern with Area 1, that any ground disturbance activities occur outside the riverfront area or come to the commission through a permit application. I agree that it's grandfathered, that area in its current tree line state is grandfathered.
Is there, for Area 1, is there replication that has to occur to repair?
It's grandfathered. The area has stabilized, though.
Okay, the area has stabilized. So no future
ground disturbance
by machinery or even by hand digging can occur
without a permit.
Without coming to the commission and requesting a permit. But Mr. Gall can still mow it in its current state and maintaining the current tree line.
Correct. That's my understanding. That's what I'm comfortable with.
What can he mow with? I mean, what does one mow with? It's machinery, isn't it? So.
Right, but it's not machinery that disturbs the ground. It just cuts the top, the topiary that's on it.
So tires with some weight is okay. You're talking about taking something that cuts into the surface and digs.
Correct.
Okay.
So basically not right. But if you start, getting into something with an implement that breaks the surface of the ground and turns it over, then that's a different discussion.
No making of furrows in the soil. Okay.
No, it's not agricultural land.
Right.
So
Okay.
no tilling.
No tilling.
We're building a structure.
Okay. So.
Do you want to take this by area?
Are there any other comments on Area 1?
Well, I guess I should just bring up the stormwater ordinance, and that if this isn't an exempted activity and disturbed, greater than the thresholds in the ordinance, it would also need a permit under the ordinance.
Which is not the Wetlands Protection Act, but is the local ordinance.
Yep.
So is 20,180 square feet, does that meet a threshold? Or, actually stepping back a moment, that's just the area that's just the hatched area, correct?
Again, I want to go back that these hatched areas are me looking at the aerial photos and saying, I think this is the area.
That's fine. We'll
Yeah.
take it as an approximation and use it for discussion's sake.
That's the area within the wetlands jurisdictional resource areas. The stormwater ordinance extends to, all areas. I should say that there are certain activities that are exempted under the ordinance. So if the threshold was exceeded, you'd want to check to make sure that, see if one of those applied or not.
And by you mean?
So what was the intent of the activity in Area A, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, the Area 1.
Area 1?
Area 1, yeah.
Well, there was a lot of piles there. I had, I brought some certain sites. You'd have a little load of loam or something, you'd bring it in there and dump it. basically, before I did that, I used to mow with my brush hog. Then once we got the piles there, I had to go between the between the piles to brush hog it. Finally, I says, I gotta clean this up. So I went in there, cleaned it up. Most of the trees were growing in the piles. They weren't, it wasn't like they were pristine, vegetated area. There was piles of everything there, junk and stuff that neighbors threw in there, I threw in there. There was a big pile of brush there we took out, and we cleaned it up. We made it look good. Everybody loves it. Everybody loves it.
Okay. So,
All right. Well, so
there's no need to go back in there and play until it's done.
so from this point forward, the maintenance of that area will be limited to vegetation cutting with a mower or brush hog or similar piece of equipment.
No more piles of...
No getting in the ground.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, no stockpiling in there either anymore.
No.
Okay.
All right. Do you want me to go down a list of exempted activities?
Go for it.
Okay. Normal maintenance or improvement of land and agricultural use, maintenance of existing landscaping, gardens or lawn areas, repair or replacement of existing roof if it's a single-family dwelling. I don't even understand why that's in there. Repair or replacement of existing septic system, the construction of any fence that will not alter existing terrain, construction of utilities other than drainage, routine maintenance to existing town roads, repairs to any stormwater treatment system deemed necessary by the city. Any emergency activity that is immediately necessary for the protection of life, property, and the environment, customary cemetery management, any work or projects for which all necessary approvals and permits have been issued before the effective date of the ordinance, any logging consistent with the timber management plan, and any agricultural activity that's consistent with the NRCS soil conservation plan.
Okay.
This is all available online.
So none of those, was there one that applied as an exemption? No.
Well, it would be up to the applicant to determine that, or propose an exemption that we apply to it.
Okay, so are there any other comments on Area 1? Besides that, from now on, no further land disturbance can occur on the site, excavation or stockpiling. However, it can still be mowed / maintained.
Yes. I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. All right, Area 2, which is the pond dam area.
So Chris, you want, and I agree that regarding water quality and wildlife habitat function and value.
Which is the idea of the BMPs, just to have that strip of land.
Two things. One, no fertilizer there, and two, we don't really have it is a dam, and I understand that, there are certain concerns regarding woody vegetation on dams, but I agree that there should be a 10-foot undisturbed vegetated buffer allowed around the perimeter, the entire perimeter, and that any...
That raises 2 points.
Yeah.
I guess my interpretation of that limited project status is that applies to state jurisdictional dams. Is that not?
That's not true.
Is that not true?
That's
Okay.
not true. I did inquire.
Okay.
It applies to any dams, even if DCR doesn't take jurisdiction under dam safety.
Okay. And from the other perspective of somebody that deals with dams from time to time, I would not want any limitation on cutting on the dam.
But is this on the dam?
It's not, it's just a slope. It's not the dam structure or the overflow area.
Is it?
In my opinion.
Well, I think
What is the footprint of the dam?
the dam, I would say, is its entire structure here, but I guess I understand about the habitat scenario. And even if this area here were left mowed, roll out, there has to be access to this structure. And there has to be an access path to it that has to be maintained. And that needs to be going down, and you need to go down there after every storm and clear debris off of that. So there's got to be, even if you let them no-mow scenario, there's got to be a pathway to get that outlet structure.
So at least delineate the size of a mowed path to each, the dam structure and to the overflow.
I don't want to drag this on unnecessarily, but I also don't want to make a determination. I don't want to dictate something that's not practical or effective. And I want to do what's in the best interest of Wetlands Protection Act as well as maintenance of this structure. So I guess
As he stated, we really need a path to get to that outflow.
Understood. So I would like to suggest we continue discussing everything tonight. Just talk through everything on this plan, but also schedule a follow-up site visit to look at that area with particular interest with regard to maintenance limits and undisturbed areas. If that's...
It worked well in the last rain. The outflow worked, the water was over the top of the concrete,
So what do you...
and everything worked perfect.
No, I don't think we're doubting that,
No.
how the dam works at all. That's not.
The overflow didn't plug up. That was the whole purpose of me going in there, to make sure that in the high water time, that this water would get out.
So are you talking about last Friday?
Thursday?
Or
Friday.
Friday. It was Friday.
Yeah, that water was going through that overflow. Yes.
Okay, that was Thursday.
So I would like to put out there for the commission's consideration that we continue discussing everything tonight, but reserve the right to do a follow-up site visit at this point with regard to Area 2.
In the maintenance of Area 2.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's, is there anything else about Area 2 right now?
No. Well, I guess, if there was like an operation and maintenance plan for the structure that addressed, concerns of both parties, it seemed like that would, resolve concerns about vegetation and fertilizer, and also concerns about making sure that the structure could continue to be maintained.
And lead to a mutual understanding?
Yep.
That's a good idea.
So we'll...
Do we want to schedule a
Yep.
date?
I don't think we can fit another site visit in on the 19th.
Not that night, no.
Well, okay.
I can't. Sorry. I'm already pushing
It'll
it.
be dark by the time we get off the other.
Could we do it before the next meeting like we did last time?
Oh, you mean that evening, the 26th?
The 26th, yeah,
Yeah.
that's how we met last time.
Yeah.
It's close enough.
Because we won't be able to discuss or act on anything until that meeting anyway, if we're leaving something open-ended. So is a follow-up site visit on the evening of the 26th at 5:15
Fine.
acceptable? Okay. Is 5:15 good for everybody? Yes, okay. Starting to slow. Okay. So, Area 3. I think the piece that we're missing here is that had this been permitted under a notice of intent through the regulations, there would have been an alternatives analysis, and that is a requirement, regardless of square footage allowances. And granted, I wouldn't have been on the commission at the time, because I wasn't on the commission at the time, but one of the things that I think should have been discussed is location of the driveway outside of the riverfront area, or further outside the riverfront area. I understand, my recollection from the site visit, the initial site visit, is that there are garage bays. Are there garage bays underneath the structure?
Underneath.
Okay. And they're obviously accessible off the driveway. So it's not necessarily realistic or practical to suggest an alternative location at this point for the driveway.
At this point, it's,
But what I would like to add to that site visit is looking at areas for supplemental riparian corridor plantings. And I don't know, I mean, I see, it looks like there's an area of planted shrubs or trees, or what are those?
right.
Do you know what species those are? Are they coniferous? Are they deciduous?
Burning bush.
Bad answer.
Nudged me.
I think he's trying to nudge me. Well, there's another opportunity. I would like to look at options for riparian corridor enhancements. It's hard, again, I'm not 100% familiar with the site. There's no, the survey of existing tree line includes those but stops partway up the driveway. So I would like to look at that as well on the 26th. And in all seriousness, because who doesn't like a good burning bush joke? But do you know what those are off the top of your head?
No.
No, okay. Are they trees or shrubs? Trees or shrubs? Trees or shrubs?
They're shrubs.
They're shrubs, okay. So, we'll look at that area as well. Looking at me.
Nothing.
All right,
I just
so.
formed about 12 burning bush jokes in my head. But then I realized we were on camera.
So with that, I would like to thank you for addressing the Commission's initial enforcement order and providing a detailed plan. I appreciate Ward Smith's work out there as well. And at this point, no further action is required until we continue this discussion on the 26th, as far as I see it. Okay, so this will be included on the agenda on the 26th. The agenda will be prepared the previous week and filed with the city clerk and posted to the city's website, and they'll give you an idea of timing. I'm going to inspect them.
What kind of sidewalk on the
5:15, please.
Thank you.
Very good. All right. Thank you all for coming in. And as a side note, if there's any follow-up regarding Northampton Street, we will let Mr. Ball know.
Okay. Thank you.
The aerial site plan you provided is very helpful. Thank you.
Someone else want one of these?
I would like one for the file, please. Is there an extra? There's one extra, or Jay has one of those.
Want to make sure we got one on the site visit.
That's
You want
perfect.
If you have an extra, I'd love one, but if you have an extra, that's, I can just bust into your file.
Actually, you can't, because I take this one with me.
Oh, okay. Then I can't bust into the file.
No, but if we have a PDF of it.
That's true. It's hard to read.
But it... All right, so let me just finish holding this and making noise with this.
Anybody else have papers?
I didn't make any labels for this one.
For the meeting minutes, just to clarify, at our site visit, we are going to review the impacts and the
are we talking about relocation to the riparian corridor, or the impacts on the riparian corridor?
Mitigation.
Just mitigation of the impacts of the, within the riparian corridor.
Associated with the construction of the
Yep.
2 to 3 story storage structure. Okay, what's the next? All right, I'll plug my ears. City of Easthampton fish ladder update.
I believe you've been receiving updates via email.
We have,
So-
and I actually talked to David today, and he provided a couple photos, which I didn't bring, but I asked Jay to stop by the site.
I did go there tonight, or this afternoon, so there was no damage caused by those rains. They've got, the hay bales at the bottom of the hill are kind of deteriorating, but they have, 1.5 foot high pile of heavy trap rock there that is doing the job, so it looks like it did the same way 2 weeks ago, so I didn't see any issues.
Yeah, he said that the contractor hasn't done the report for this past week, but he'll get it to us soon, so it's in compliance at this point.
Okay, Hall Street Extension, Jillian Estates, we received our weekly update, we have a copy of the
Printed
file.
out.
Nothing of note, other than that I did sign off on the building permit for Lot 3. Well, I can do that. I have an order of conditions.
All right. I will not be signing that building permit.
Well, that's a separate issue. But the footprints of all the houses were included in the notice of intent. So they have the wetlands authorization that they need. Easthampton Savings Bank, parking lot update. We received it.
Received everything, yeah, we received it, it's in compliance with their status reports, and I drove by it last week, and it looked like it was doing quite well.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, Pleasant Street Mills, Jerry reported that there's been nothing happening since that initial
Yeah, not a
work.
thing, not even a thing being cleared.
What's in the paper?
Yes, so we're hoping to, once the easement language is finalized by City Council, hopefully by September, then we'll be putting the documents together and hopefully getting shovels into the ground before the end of the calendar year. So.
Excellent.
And moving on, meeting minutes approval, July 22nd, 2013. Who? Do you have? You printed a copy?
I printed a copy, yeah.
So who, Dan, you were not here.
Not here.
So. Is there a motion regarding the meeting minutes or any discussion?
I'll move to accept my own minutes. Can I do that?
They should come from the other end of the table.
Anyone?
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for July 22nd.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Okay. Is there anything else before we close this here?
Actually, there is one thing, I didn't put this on for under other business. We did talk last week about 32 Cottage Street, and Jay, you put it under business. We're gonna do some research, talk to the property owner about plans.
I did look up the property owner, but I went there and talked to Tom Doherty, and because they're the ones that are going to do the tree removal, or have someone do it, I believe. And he said they're not going to do anything until the spring, probably February. I'm not sure if that's the best time.
February, spring?
I know, well, but, and I said, if you do anything, you need to file the correct paperwork, so he's aware of that, and I believe that will happen.
Did you see the property owner, or the?
He's not the property owner, but he's the business owner.
Business owner,
He
okay.
has a vested interest in the
He has a
improvement of the
vested,
property.
and so I think they're taking care of it,
Okay.
or at least paying for it.
That's all I have.
Anything else? You had expressed an interest in seeing the baseline documentation for those 2 APRs that Department of Agriculture provided 20, 30 years late.
Yes.
Trying to look at the dates.
I have my own copies.
Fine, and I'll just
So you have to keep those in your own file. I
That's
think it's good to have 2 copies. Should I also note that the draft OSRP went out today to
Would you like them?
the Open Space Committee? So they'll be looking at it in September 4th, 3rd, 4th, And then after their edits and comments are incorporated, we'll be putting it up to public comment for 30 days. So we're moving right along.
And then
Should be done by the end of
we
the
need
year.
to, as this group, look at it, so I can get back to CPA with information for that.
Correct. But we are moving right along, so.
And it is sizable.
Yeah, 65 pages.
That's not bad.
I was
Not
thinking
bad.
more like file size.
Yeah, but unfortunately, there's so many state requirements for open space plans that if you don't hit every element, you get dinged, so.
Great. Anything else?
With that, I have nothing else. Anything else?
You're all-
All right.
You guys want to
Motion to adjourn at
7:40.
7:40 p.m. And how about?
That's a little bit slow.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Yes.
All those in favor?
I should fix that clock. That's like 4 minutes too slow.